Montenegro reveals itself like a living postcard along the Adriatic coast. A small yet incredibly diverse country where dramatic landscapes and rich history exist side by side. Nestled in southeastern Europe on the Balkan Peninsula, it stretches between a glittering sea and rugged mountains, offering a rare blend of coastal elegance and wild natural beauty. From the timeless charm of Kotor, where ancient stone walls rise steeply against the mountains, to the vibrant shores of Budva, the coastline is full of contrast, energy, and character. And what makes Montenegro even more special is how quickly everything changes. In just a short drive, the scenery transforms completely. Snow-covered peaks, vast alpine landscapes, the deep and dramatic Tara River Canyon, the calm, untouched waters of Lake Skadar, and even Ostrog Monastery built right into a massive cliff, looking so unique from a distance. All of this within one small country and just a short drive away. During our Easter getaway, we chose to explore Montenegro slowly, taking in every view, enjoying the stillness, and adding just the right touch of adventure along the way. But before we dive into the full journey, here's a quick look at how our one-week Montenegro trip unfolded. On day 1, we landed in Podgorica and began our scenic drive to Kotor via the breathtaking P1 Serpentine Road. On day 2, we explored Kotor Old Town, climbed the fortress, and visited the charming town of Perast. On day 3, we headed to Budva, wandered through its old town, and walked along the stunning coastal path to Mogren Beach. On day 4, we experienced the peaceful beauty of Lake Skadar, followed by stops in Petrovac and the iconic Sveti Stefan. On day 5, we journeyed through snow-covered mountains to reach the dramatic Tara River Canyon. And on day 6, we explored Podgorica, visited the incredible Ostrog Monastery, and wrapped up with a few beautiful natural spots nearby. So join us as we explore, unwind, and discover the beauty of Montenegro, a country full of diverse landscapes and unforgettable views. Hi vacation lovers, dobrodošli! Welcome back to the channel. Our Montenegro journey began the moment we landed in the peaceful capital Podgorica in the early afternoon. Without wasting any time, we headed straight to pick up our rental car, which we had booked online, and hit the road. Just one small tip from our experience: some companies don't offer a drop box for key returns. Our return flight was at 7 a.m., so we actually had to return the car a day earlier. So it's definitely worth checking the return policy in advance. Our first destination was the stunning coastal town of Kotor. Instead of taking the usual highway from Podgorica to Kotor, we decided to take the famous P1 Serpentine Road, and it turned out to be an experience on its own. To reach the Adriatic coast from inland Montenegro, you have to cross the mountains, and this road takes you right over them. First, you climb high up into the mountains, and then slowly descend toward Kotor, with incredible views along the way. The road itself is very narrow, with sharp hairpin turns, and in some sections only one car can pass at a time, so you need to drive slowly and carefully. There are also parts without guardrails, which can feel a bit challenging if you're not used to mountain roads, but if you take it slow, it's completely manageable and absolutely worth it for the views and the experience. As we started climbing the P1 Serpentine Road, the scenery slowly began to change. With every turn, more of the Adriatic coastline and the beautiful bay of Kotor started opening up below us. We stopped at a few viewpoints along the way, and each one felt more beautiful than the last. Towering mountains on one side and the deep blue bay on the other. If you have enough time, this is definitely one of those roads where you should stop often and just take in the surroundings, because the views here are truly something special. By the time we reached our final viewpoint for the day, the sun was setting, and the town lights below slowly started glowing. With the mountains, the sea, and the soft evening atmosphere around us, everything looked so picturesque. Why evening? We arrived in Kotor and checked into our cozy apartment. A2 started with a beautiful morning view as Kotor slowly woke up below us. From the balcony, we had a beautiful panoramic view of the Bay of Kotor, the town below, and even the famous Kotor Fortress high on the hillside. the Old Town stood out with its red rooftops. Kotor Old Town is a UNESCO-protected medieval town on the Adriatic coast, completely surrounded by mountains and tucked deep inside a natural harbor. From above, you really notice how unique it is, with old stone walls climbing high up the hillside above the town. It's known for its Venetian-style buildings, historic churches, and narrow cobblestone streets that still feel untouched. The whole place has such a quiet, timeless atmosphere, and watching it slowly come to life in the morning was a really nice way to start the day. For this trip, we wanted to take things a little slower, and this place was perfect for that. After a relaxing start to the day, we headed down and entered Kotor Old Town through a gate close to our apartment. It immediately felt like we had stepped into a movie set. The first thing you notice is how everything is made of this soft, pale stone, like the whole town is glowing slightly. The streets are super narrow and winding, almost like a maze, with tall medieval buildings rising on both sides, so you only see slices of sky above you. And one thing you'll notice right away, cats everywhere. Sitting on steps, tucked into corners, or strolling through the streets like they own the place. Kotor is even called the City of Cats. They were brought here by sailors centuries ago to control rodents, and over time they became part of the town's identity. Even on this trip, we kept spotting them everywhere we went. We started our morning with the main highlight, Kotor Fortress. It's one of the most popular things to do here, and the entrance is right from the old town with multiple access points, and it's free to enter. We then started making our way toward the fortress. That's where the real challenge begins, around 1,500 steps uphill. The climb is definitely tiring in parts, with uneven stone paths and steep stairs, but the views keep getting better the higher you go. You start seeing the rooftops below, the bay opening wider, and the mountains surrounding everything around you. Along the way, we paused often, not because we needed rest, but because the views demanded attention. At the top, you really get the full view of the town, the bay, and the coastline beyond. And the fortress itself has a lot of history too. Most of it was built during Venetian times to protect the town from invasions, and once you're up there, you can clearly see why this location was so important for guarding the bay. After coming back down, we slowed things down and walked through the old town until we reached St. Luke's Square, right in front of St. Nicholas Church. We stepped inside for a quick look before lunch. It's a small church, but it features traditional Orthodox icons and beautiful golden details. After that, we found a spot in the square and enjoyed our lunch. It's a really nice open square with a relaxed atmosphere. And cats as your fellow guests here too. After lunch, we continued wandering through the streets of Kotor Old Town. As I mentioned earlier, Kotor Old Town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and as you walk around, it's easy to see why. Almost every turn leads to another little square, hidden courtyard, or quiet corner waiting to be discovered. The town is packed with centuries of history. Along the way, we passed old family palaces with beautiful stone details, small museums tucked into historic buildings, and local shops selling all kinds of regional specialties. One of the highlights is St. Tryphon's Cathedral and its vibrant square, one of Kotor's most important landmarks. With its beautiful stone facade and slightly uneven twin towers, it has been a symbol of the town for centuries. Even though we entered through a gate near our apartment, there are actually several ways to get into Kotor Old Town. If you come through the roadside entrance, you'll end up right by the Kotor Clock Tower, slightly leaning, but that's what makes it special. You can also walk along parts of the Old Town walls. From up there, you get a completely different view of Kotor, with the bay, the rooftops, and the mountains all coming together in one stunning panorama. In the afternoon, we headed to Perast, a quiet, elegant little coastal town just about 30 minutes from Kotor. It's one of those places you really shouldn't miss when you're in Montenegro. Stone buildings, calm water, and a peaceful waterfront stretch along the bay. It's small, but really beautiful. But the main highlight here is actually the two tiny islands just off the shore. One is St. George Island, a natural island with a monastery on it, but it's not open to visitors. The other is Our Lady of the Rocks, a man-made island that you can visit. So we decided to take a boat ride out there. It's really easy to find boats along the shore, and there are a few places offering rides, so it's worth checking the prices. We paid around 10 euros per person, and the ride itself only takes about 10 minutes. While we were on the boat, the weather suddenly turned windy and a bit cloudy. We passed by St. George Island. Even though you can't visit it, you can still get quite close and see it properly from the water. From the boat, we also got a really nice view of Our Lady of the Rocks. The story behind it is pretty interesting. Back in 1452, sailors found an icon of the Virgin Mary on a rock there, and over time, they started placing stones at that spot. Generation after generation kept adding more, even sinking old ships filled with rocks, and that's how the island was slowly created. By the time we reached Our Lady of the Rocks, the wind had become really strong. There's a church and a small museum on the island, so if you're planning to go inside, it's a good idea to check the opening hours beforehand. We spent some time just walking around the little island. Exploring such a small place in that windy weather wasn't the most pleasant experience, but at the same time, it felt very different and memorable. The views across the bay were still absolutely beautiful. We stayed for around half an hour before heading back to the boat as the weather kept getting rougher. On the way back to Kotor, there are also some really beautiful places along the bay. We stopped for a while in Perchin, a small, quiet town by the water. If the weather had been better, it would have been such a lovely spot to spend a relaxing evening. And if you're planning to explore Montenegro properly, renting a car really makes a huge difference. It gives you the freedom to explore the coastal towns, mountain roads, and scenic viewpoints at your own pace, since public transport is limited in many areas. On day 3, we left Kotor and headed toward Budva. Budva is a historic coastal town, with roots going back to the Greeks, Illyrians, and Romans. Surrounded by the Dinaric Alps and the deep blue Adriatic Sea, it offers a perfect blend of history and natural beauty. Around Budva Old Town, you'll find plenty of nice hotels and apartments, especially near the seaside. We booked one within walking distance of the Old Town, which made everything really convenient. After checking in, we headed straight toward Budva Old Town. The whole town is surrounded by old stone walls facing the Adriatic, giving it that classic medieval coastal feel. There are several gates you can use to enter. We entered through the main gate, and instantly it felt like stepping into a completely different world, far away from the lively beach bars and modern atmosphere outside. Like Kotor, Budva has narrow stone streets, historic buildings, and centuries of history. But unlike Kotor, which sits deep inside the Bay of Kotor and is surrounded by dramatic mountains, Budva opens directly onto the Adriatic Sea and has a much stronger connection to its beaches and coastline. Budva Old Town is over 2,000 years old, and as we wandered through its narrow stone streets, we discovered charming little squares, like this one, known as the Square of Poets. You'll also come across centuries-old churches, and on almost every street, boutique shops tucked into beautiful stone buildings, along with hidden corners that make the town feel full of history and stories. We also made our way to the Citadel, one of the most important landmarks in the Old Town. It has watched over Budva's coastline for centuries and offers beautiful views of the sea and the surrounding area. Inside the Old Town, there are plenty of cafes and restaurants. But before anything else, we stopped to try a fresh local dessert from a small shop in one of the squares. If you're visiting during summer, keep in mind that Budva Old Town gets much busier than what we experienced in April. So if you want to properly explore it, plan some extra time in your itinerary. Although there were plenty of restaurants inside the Old Town, we decided to go outside for lunch and found a beautiful spot by the water where we enjoyed our meal with lovely views. Later, we went back inside the Old Town and walked through another gate that led us to Budva Old Town Beach. Small, but with an incredible backdrop of the medieval walls behind it and the Adriatic Sea in front. From there, we continued walking along the coast toward Mogran Beach, enjoying the seaside views that make Budva one of Montenegro's most popular coastal towns. On the way, you'll see the famous ballerina statue. Standing on a rock facing the sea, it has become one of the symbols of Budva. You'll find it all over Montenegro, especially in souvenir shops. The path is narrow and scenic, hugging the cliffs with incredible sea views. Since we had already spent the previous day wandering through Kotor's historic streets, I personally enjoyed this coastal walk even more than exploring Budva Old Town. It felt like a refreshing change of scenery, and the combination of the sea, the rocky coastline, and the beautiful views along the path made it a really enjoyable experience. After a short walk, we arrive at Mogran Beach, a hidden paradise surrounded by cliffs and crystal clear water. It's the perfect place to slow down and just take in the moment. But if you enjoy lively beaches and a bustling summer atmosphere, then summer is definitely the best time to visit. And once again, we noticed something familiar: cats quietly resting along the rocks. By now, it's clear they're part of Montenegro's charm wherever we go. And on our way back from Mogran Beach, we stopped at one of the local cafes for a nice coffee break, along with some delicious local tarts and coffee. For the rest of the evening, we spent our time along Budva's seafront promenade. The waterfront was lined with restaurants and cafes, with beautiful views of the Adriatic Sea stretching out in front of us. With the sea on one side and the lively atmosphere along the promenade, it felt like the perfect place to embrace that relaxing vacation mode and simply enjoy the evening. On day 4, we started the day with a drive to Lake Skadar. Located on the border of Montenegro and Albania, it's the largest lake in southern Europe and one of the most beautiful natural spots in the country. It takes around 50 minutes by car from Budva, but there are also train, bus, and day tour options if you don't want to drive. And just like most roads in Montenegro, the drive itself is really scenic. During the drive from Budva to Lake Skadar, we had to pay a small toll tax both ways. So if you're driving, just keep that in mind. One thing we really appreciated during the trip was how easy parking was in Montenegro. Most places we visited had free parking, which made road trips much more convenient. Once we arrived, we found a free parking area near the lake. Around the waterfront, there are several companies offering boat tours with different prices and timings, so it's definitely worth checking a few before booking. We chose a 2-hour boat tour, but you can also find shorter 1-hour tours or longer 3-hour options. We arrived around 11 in the morning, and since our boat tour wasn't until 1 p.m., we spent some time exploring the area first. The views were beautiful, so the extra time before the tour was a nice bonus. There are also plenty of cafes and restaurants around the lake, so before the tour, we stopped at one of them to relax a bit and have some food. The boat tour turned out to be one of the most relaxing experiences of the trip. At first, the boat moved slowly through narrow waterways filled with long grass gently swaying with the water. In April, the grass looked dry and golden, but during summer it probably turns beautifully green. Then suddenly, the landscape opened up into the huge lake surrounded by mountains. Lake Skadar is home to more than 260 bird species, so it's a dream place for nature lovers. You might spot herons, egrets, eagles, and if you're lucky, even the famous Dalmatian pelicans, which we actually managed to see. Lake was covered with floating water lilies. With the calm water, distant snow-covered mountains, and complete silence around us, the whole place felt incredibly peaceful. At one point, we could even see Albania across the lake, since the border runs right through this region. Even without spotting many birds, the tour would still be worth it purely for the scenery. The landscapes and quiet atmosphere made this one of the most memorable parts of our Montenegro trip. After the tour, we had a late lunch at a lakeside restaurant. Then we headed to Petrovac, which was a scenic 35-minute drive away. Petrovac had a completely different atmosphere compared to Budva, much quieter and slower paced. Even though the sea was still too cold for swimming in early April, it was such a nice place to walk around and enjoy the coastline. The beach is surrounded by reddish cliffs and rocky formations, which gives the whole area a unique look. Petrovac is a small coastal town that's really nice to explore on foot. You can walk along the seaside promenade and enjoy the views of the Adriatic. At one end of the beach, you'll find the small Venetian Castello fortress. It's a short climb to the top, and from there you get beautiful views of the town, the coastline, and the sea. From there, we drove about 15 to 20 minutes to Sveti Stefan, probably one of the most recognizable places in Montenegro. This tiny island, connected to the mainland by a narrow strip of land, was once a fishing village and is now a luxury resort. Visitors usually can't enter unless they're staying there, but the viewpoints and beaches around it are stunning enough on their own. And you can walk along the pathway and go right up to the gate of the island. Sveti Stefan has beautiful beaches on both sides of the pathway leading toward the island, with crystal clear water and stunning coastal views all around. We stayed there until evening, just relaxing by the shore and enjoying the surroundings. The calm sea made the whole place look even more beautiful. Later, we drove back to Budva, and the coastal road at sunset made for a beautiful return journey. The next morning, we packed up and headed toward Tara River Canyon, one of the deepest canyons in the world. Throughout our one-week trip in Montenegro, every drive from one place to another came with incredibly beautiful scenery. The roads here are so picturesque that sometimes the journey itself felt just as special as the destination. The drive started with coastal scenery, but within a short time, everything changed completely. Suddenly, we were surrounded by snow-covered mountains, forests, and roadsides. It felt like entering a different season altogether. We stopped a few times just to enjoy the scenery because it was too beautiful to simply drive past. Eventually, we reached the Tara Canyon area, home to the famous Đurđevića Tara Bridge. The Tara River Canyon is one of the deepest canyons in Europe and is often considered the second deepest in the world after the Grand Canyon, with dramatic cliffs and the river flowing far below. The Đurđevića Tara Bridge is one of Montenegro's most iconic landmarks and was once the largest concrete arch bridge in Europe. During World War II, one of its arches was destroyed to stop advancing enemy forces and later rebuilt. Today, it stands as a symbol of Montenegro's resilience and engineering skill. There was some construction work during our visit, so the classic view wasn't fully clear. Still, we walked across the bridge and enjoyed the canyon views from above. In summer, this area is popular for rafting and ziplining, while during our visit, it felt calm and quiet. After spending some time there, we continued toward Podgorica, our final stop of the trip. The drive through the snowy mountains and tiny villages was the highlight of the day. We reached Podgorica, pronounced the capital city of Montenegro, before evening, checked into our hotel, and ended the day at a nice restaurant, enjoying some good food and a relaxed evening. One thing we noticed throughout our trip was that food prices in Montenegro were quite reasonable compared to many other European destinations. Day 6 was all about exploring the capital city and some nearby attractions. We started at the Millennium Bridge, one of Podgorica's most recognizable landmarks. Stretching across the Moracha River, its modern design felt very different from the medieval towns and coastal scenery we had been exploring throughout the trip. Right beside the bridge, there's a pleasant riverside park where you can take a walk and enjoy views of the river. You can also go down closer to the water beneath the bridge, which gives you a completely different perspective of both the river and the structure itself. From there, we drove about 50 minutes to Ostrog Monastery, built directly into a steep cliff high above the valley below. It's one of the most important pilgrimage sites in the Balkans and attracts visitors from all over the world. Founded in the 17th century by Saint Basil of Ostrog, the monastery is known for its unique architecture, blending naturally into the rock face. If you'd like to go inside the monastery, keep in mind that the queues can be quite long, so it's a good idea to plan extra time for your visit. One thing to keep in mind is that from the parking area, there's still a short 10 to 15 minute uphill walk to reach the monastery. From here, you also get beautiful views over the valley below. Later, we continued our journey toward Niagara Falls near Podgorica. On the way, we stopped at a beautiful restaurant surrounded by nature. It was the perfect late lunch, with fresh raspberry juice, good food, and peaceful scenic surroundings. Then we reached the final stop of our trip, Niagara Falls, just a 10-minute drive from Podgorica. These waterfalls may not be as massive as the famous Niagara Falls in North America, but they have their own charm, especially during spring when melting snow makes the water flow stronger and the landscape greener. What also stood out was how different this area felt compared to the places we had visited over the previous few days. After the coastline, mountains, lakes, and canyons, ending the trip here surrounded by flowing water felt like a completely different side of Montenegro. And that brings us to the end of our Montenegro adventure. I hope you enjoyed traveling through this beautiful country with us, and that this video helps you plan your own Montenegro trip someday. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more travel adventures. Until the next trip, stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop being a vacation lover.